It's my favourite part of the week. It's time for our weekly special on the world of artificial intelligence. Welcome to AI Decoded, our new and expanded AI Decoded. Same shape, same themes, but as we've already established in previous weeks, it's a technology developing so fast that really it gives new context to everything we discuss on this programme. Tonight, the political fight over disinformation. The New York Times has an interview today with Nina Yankovits. 2 years ago, she was appointed to an agency within Homeland Security tasked with policing online disinformation. But under a torrent of abuse and political attacks from the right, her agency was abolished before her work even began. AI is driving a quantum leap in disinformation. The Guardian has a similar interview today with the French Minister for Europe, who says his country is being pounded by Russian disinformation ahead of European elections in June. So, what do we do? Tonight, we will speak to one of the world's leading voices in artificial intelligence, the winner of the Turing Prize, computer scientist Professor Yoshua Bengio. Also here, one of the leading research companies monitoring and countering this threat online. How do they do it? And Shiloh. She's back. Our virtual AI companion who was a little shy last week, but I'm expecting big things from her tonight. And also here, welcome back to Priya Lakhani, our regular AI contributor, CEO of Century Tech, who will be guiding us through it all. Now, this interview with Nina Yankovits really interests me. She's now running this independent American Sunlight organisation, which really does put, I think, a spotlight on the depth of the problem. There's a wave of disinformation coming from China and Russia. But I wasn't aware how aggressive the attacks have been lately from the right in America on those who are trying to fight it, the researchers and the scientists who are trying to fight it. And she really sets that out today in that article.
Yeah, so what she's really saying is that there are activists, lawmakers even, from the right that were trying to suppress the research that researchers are doing on disinformation, because their research might be uncovering stories that maybe are, against the values of the right. They're maybe too liberal. But this is where you have this really muddied area where, look, this is about disinformation. This is about fighting for truth, right? And so this isn't just about, so what does freedom of speech actually mean, right? It is freedom of truth. It's freedom of opinion, right? It's freedom to offend, maybe saying something that someone doesn't agree with. But freedom of speech is not freedom of disinformation, freedom of misinformation.
And dissemination of that.
Exactly. And so study is needed, researchers are needed, governments do need to invest in this. You saw the second story about what France are saying, right? A third of the population going through elections this year. It's incredibly important. So she started this other body to be able to tackle this, which is so important. OK, well, let's get an expert view, because if AI is supercharging this threat, how much responsibility do the creators have to tackle it? And is the AI they're developing capable of identifying and removing the problem? We have a brilliant guest for you this week, one of the godfathers of AI, and I don't use that term lightly. Professor Yoshua Bengio was this past week named Time magazine's 100 most influential people worldwide. His research has been instrumental in shaping the world's understanding of AI, its potential and its threats. It earned him the 2018 Turing Award, the Nobel Prize of Computing, alongside Geoffrey Hinton and Jan LeCun. Yoshua Bengio, welcome to the programme.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Help us understand, would you, what these AI bots can do in the wrong hands and what we're up against?
Well, what is already happening is we can use these AI systems to synthesize content in a controlled way. So content could be voices, images, videos, or texts. Controlled means you can specify, for example, to imitate a particular person based on the data we have about that person. You can specify what that person would say. Recently, I've seen a fake me saying things I would never say. And I must say it's shocking, more than seeing other people being imitated, but it's also something chilling and that we have to do something about.
And it's so important we get to the bottom of this. We had the AI Safety Summit late last year. We have the idea of red teaming, evaluation of large language models. You've done lots of work on secure systems. You write about an AI scientist. Do you think that governments have understood these threats properly? And do you think that those methods are going to be enough to be able to protect us from all of these risks?
Well, we don't have silver bullets, and governments are not doing enough. But compared to a year ago, the situation is a lot better. Of course, one problem is that also the technology is changing and these AI systems are becoming more capable. And one of the things I'm worried about, especially in the context of political disinformation, is that we now have AI systems that master language. One concern that scientists have is that bad actors tune them, which might not require a lot of effort, so that they can be really good at making you change your mind, persuasion. And you can see how that could be dangerous in the context of elections. So one thing is seeing memes, seeing videos, people, and you might think, oh yeah, it's a fake. Or lots of people actually even get trapped by that. But if you have a dialogue over days, weeks with an entity, and you think it's a human, it's very plausible that they could change your mind, and you can imagine the consequences.
We're talking about bots and rogue actors, but if this is going to be handled properly, there has to be accessibility to the black box, to the models themselves, and there has to be transparency. And one of the things that alarmed me when the European Union asked about this was Sam Altman saying at OpenAI, well, we'll just leave. Is that the right approach?
Well, I don't think we should take these threats for cash. I think that the governments shouldn't, not do what they need to do to protect the public because of such declarations. It's really important that we do the right things. And what we need to do, lots of things, but as you said, transparency, but let's be careful about what that means. We want governments or independent auditors and scientists to be able to see what these companies are doing, to see what they're doing to secure their systems so that they don't fall in the wrong hands, to see what they've done to make sure that their safety protections are good enough. And then if they're not good enough, then they should not be allowed to operate. That's the sort of thing we need. We also need to think about, well, okay, let's say all of this doesn't work. So bad actors take hold of these things and they start doing bad things, depending on the kind of threat. So, we're talking about disinformation, but people are worried about helping to design all kinds of weapons, including biological weapons. For each of these kinds of threats, we have to think of countermeasures. So in the case of disinformation, people are talking about being more strict about the identity behind each account, so that no single person could have 1,000 accounts, right? Which allows bad actors to quickly disseminate information compared to if they were only allowed to have one account. And there are technical ways to do this without necessarily violating privacy.
And can I ask you, you've talked about bad actors quite a lot and being able to potentially evaluate models, but when it comes to open source models, so we have these closed source models by some companies, and then we have these companies developing open source models. And then the idea, of course, is that those models are available to others to fine tune. We know that on the dark web, you can buy some of these models that have already been fine tuned for some pretty nasty things. Is it your opinion that we should shut down open source models? Or how do we regulate those models once they're out there in the Wild West? But also taking into account the fact that then there's a very, very strong powerhouse of those closed source model companies. How are we going to tackle this, Professor?
Yeah, these are hard questions. I wish I had all the answers, but let me...
I've got more questions.
Let me say a few words. So open source is tricky because it also comes with a lot of advantages. Some of the advances in safety come because we have access to Meta's open source models and others. So we also have, of course, the dangers that if those models are too capable and they fall in the wrong hands, then there's nothing any regulation is going to do to help, prevent misuse that's dangerous for the population. So I think the first thing is to consider who should decide whether a particular model, has more cons than pros. And I don't think it should be the CEO of a company. I think it should be the regulator. I think it should be the public in some way, because there's a social choice here between the pros and cons. And that means, we need governments to get involved in those decisions. We need to evaluate the capabilities of these models before the decision is taken. Like, can this model be used for X, Y, or Z, which could be very dangerous? And if the answer is yes, in ways that are too concerning, then maybe the regulator's decision will be, no, you're not allowed to make that public. I mean, the reason, for example, why the Biden executive order is asking companies to make their systems secure. Secure means that they're not accessible to anybody. And of course, open source is available to anybody. And once it's shared, you can't take it back. I mean, it's copied all over the world, and we don't have any control anymore.
Yoshua, I wish we could talk more. We're pressed for time. Is it true that you're off to the gala, the Time 100 gala tonight?
Yes, I'm almost dressed up for that. It's going to be exciting. Very, very proud to be part of that, but also glad that this visibility is an opportunity to talk about these hard issues that, of the kind we've been discussing today.
Well, we're honoured to have you on the programme. Congratulations on your award. Thank you for coming on to speak to us.